I want to help you improve your speaking fluency. And the way that we're going to do that is by talking about fast speech. So if you are someone who would like to improve your speaking and listening skills, please subscribe, turn on notifications. That way I can become your teacher. My name is Wes. The channel is Interactive English. It's all about trying to help you reach your fluency goals. So one thing that I often hear is learners tell me, look, when you are speaking, I understand what you're saying, but when I'm watching a movie or TV show, it's really confusing. And if you ever wonder why certain phrases just sound like one long word, mostly it's because of connected speech. And that's what I want to look at right now. We're going to do a deep dive into some different sentences so that you have a better understanding of why people speak the way they do. So I have this short little dialogue, which we are going to practice reading it, saying it together at the end. And we're going to go through one at a time. So just so you can hear me say this dialogue, and then we're going to break it down sentence by sentence. So I'm going to read both A and B right now. Did you know we're not going to finish on time? I should have seen this coming from a mile away. What do you think we ought to do now? We're going to have to go back to square one. Okay, I think it's rather simple, straightforward. Perhaps that was easy for you to follow, but let's go through this one at a time. And of course, as we do this, I want you to practice. I want you to say these sentences out loud, practice your speaking skills. And again, even if this feels a little unnatural, don't feel like you ever have to speak with any sort of accent. I do think this will certainly help your listening comprehension. So just keep that in mind. Let's look at this first question right here. Did you know we're not going to finish on time? So when I just said it right there, I was pronouncing each individual word. Let's look at what's going on, and this should give you a little better idea as to what's happening. So did you? Assimilation is going to occur. This is when we have two sounds, they blend together to create a new sound. In this case, the D and Y, they blend together and you get this j sound. It's almost like we're going to put that between the two words, and that allows us to connect them together. Did you? Did you? It's not something you have to force. If you're just saying one word right after the other, it's going to occur naturally. And you often come across this in questions. Did you? Did you know we're not going to? This is probably the most common reduction in spoken English. Going to is often reduced to gonna. This is when we're removing or changing sounds. Did you know we're not gonna finish on time? So linking may occur. This is when we can link the final consonant sound of one word with the beginning vowel sound of the next word. So finish on. It's like we're taking that final SH sound and we're moving it over to that preposition. Finish on. Finish on time. So on time, there's a little coarticulation going on. This is when we have overlapping sounds. So basically, just so you're aware of it, again, it's going to help you speak a little more easily and naturally. When you finish making that N sound, think about where your tongue is in your mouth. On. Your tongue is going to be up behind your top front teeth, but we're going to stop the air, and then we're going to release right in to that T in time, that true T. On time. On time. So when your tongue comes down, we're going to be moving right into that T. So you can see down there, we're stopping it with the N and then releasing into the T, on time. I've given you the phonetic spelling so that you can kind of get a better idea and actually see what it is that I'm pronouncing. So I'll say it slowly, and I want you to repeat after me. And then we'll do this a few times. So let's say it one time slowly. Did you know we're not gonna finish on time? All right, now I'll say it at a more normal speed. Again, repeat after me. Did you know we're not gonna finish on time? And then if you, again, somebody were to say this quickly, and you can give it a try. It's always good to practice, positioning the tongue in the mouth and transitioning from one sound to the next. And even though this is a simple question, it may be a little challenging. Did you know we're not going to finish on time? All right, I was really trying to say it much faster. We're going to come back to this when we say the dialogue together. If you are actually practicing your speaking skills, let me know. Write that in the chat, in the comments. Just write the word speaking, so I know that you are participating. Now, I forgot to mention with each of these, because we're talking about American fast speech, because I'm from the United States, each of these pictures is just like a landmark in the US. And I was going to ask you at the beginning, like, to quiz you. Where is this? You can tell me what you think about the next one. This is from St. Louis, Missouri. This is the Gateway Arch. That is a famous landmark in St. Louis. One thing before we continue, if you would like to practice and improve your speaking skills, you can check out the link down in the description if you want to learn more about my speaking course. This course is for intermediate to advanced speakers. It's all about trying to help you speak confidently, speak clearly, and speak naturally. Check out that link down below if you'd like to learn more about class times and availability. And I actually see some people in here taking the speaking course. Good to see you, Takayo, Rafaela, and excellent. Thank you for participating, Kishna, Sophie. Perfect. All right, I'm going to ask you guys that each time. If you're practicing, just write that word speaking. So this is the next sentence that I want to look at and examine. I should have seen this coming from a mile away. When I say it like that, I sound like a little like a robot. And I'm not going to say it like that. I'm going to say I should have seen this coming from a mile away. And in case you're wondering, I put that expression down there. To see something coming from a mile away is an expression. And basically it means that you're able to foresee something that will happen in the future, and you can prepare for it because it's kind of obvious that this is coming and you can see it from a mile away. In this case, we're using I should have to express regret. This is a modal, we can call this a modal of lost opportunity, and you're expressing regret for about something. So you're basically saying, well, I should have seen this coming from a mile away. It was obvious, but in this case, I did not see it. I should have seen this coming from a mile away. If you want, you can write in the chat too, where is this? This is another famous landmark in the US. This is a little more challenging. I'll tell you after we talk about this sentence. So what's going on with this sentence? First, should have, we can reduce that with these modals of lost opportunity. Should have, could have, would have, we can reduce them, and it's going to sound like should have or shoulda. There's also some coarticulation, overlapping sounds with seen this. Again, we're stopping the air with the N and releasing into that voice TH. This, seen this coming. Now, this is not something that you have to do. I think in places like the United States, it's a little more common. People will drop the G in continuous tense verbs. So instead of coming, I might say coming. Either one is okay, but just so you're aware of it, G dropping may occur. And then linking. We can link those different phrases down there. From we're going to link that consonant sound with that vowel sound, from a mile away. It's like we're moving that L sound over to that schwa sound in a way, mile away. From a mile away. And that can be a little tricky to say quickly. From a mile away. From a mile away. So here is what it looks like. You can reduce should have, either should have, and you're going to end it with that V sound, or because the next word is a consonant, you could even drop that V and it's going to sound like shoulda, shoulda. So let's say it slowly. I want you to repeat after me, and again, just repeat it slowly, and then we're going to get a little faster. So one time slowly. And I'm going to say shoulda, okay, just because it's a little more reduced. I should have seen this coming from a mile away. Okay. Now we'll say it maybe just at a natural speed. I want you to repeat after me. I should have seen this coming from a mile away. Okay, now I want to challenge you and see if you can just run right through the sentence. Ready? I should have seen this coming from a mile away. All right, again, you can let me know. Just write the word speaking. Excellent, Roman, perfect. I want you guys participating in this lesson. After all, this is interactive English. And I saw an answer in there. Someone says, Kareem, yes, this is a picture of Alcatraz. In San Francisco, this is Alcatraz, the famous, well-known prison. It's now a tourist attraction. It's not really being used right now, but that's a good eye. Excellent. The next sentence, and once again, you can tell me what is this landmark. I've done these lessons before, and I've used more famous landmarks. I think these are a little trickier, but if you've been to these places, maybe I'm sure you're familiar with it. So the next, this is a question. What do you think we ought to do now? Again, I'm not going to say it like that. I'm going to say it. I'm going to ask this question. What do you think we ought to do now? What do you think we ought to do now? So what's happening? What do you? So the one thing, there are two things that I want to point out. Let's skip over the coarticulation for right now. I want to talk about some of these reductions. So the reduction, and I'm going to skip to the end there with ought to. So this is another modal. It's like saying should. It's not as commonly used. Most of the time somebody would just say should. What do you think we should do now? But I want to mix it up a little bit. You could use ought to as well, and we're going to reduce that to oughta. Now, do you, there are phrases that we can reduce. Gonna, wanna, have to, shoulda, coulda, woulda, oughta. But words can get reduced as well when they're not stressed. So we have do, you. These words aren't really stressed, and we can reduce them, and that vowel sound's going to change slightly. And instead of saying do, it's almost going to sound like we're saying with the schwa sound. Same with you. It's going to sound more like that schwa sound. Duh, ya, duh, ya. So what do you think we oughta do now? A few more things I want to point out. Let's go back to that coarticulation with what do. So we have, the T and the D, your tongue is pretty much in the same position. And you're going to have that stop T and then release into the D sound in do. But when you have that T and the D, it almost is like the T just goes away and it elides. You're not really going to hear it. So because of that, it's almost going to sound like whata ya, whata ya. If I'm saying it quickly, whata ya. What do you think we oughta do now? I want to mention the flap T, and this is a distinct part of the American accent. I told you I'm from the United States. When you have the T between those two vowel sounds, often it's going to get pronounced as a flap T. It's going to sound like a soft D. So ought to, I'm going to reduce it. It's going to sound like oughta, oughta, oughta. Now, even though I'm spelling it with O-U-T-T-A, again, just so you know, I'm pronouncing it as a flap T. So here is what I'm saying, basically, what it's going to sound like. What do you think we ought to do now? Let's say the question. I'm going to say it slowly, repeat after me, and then we're going to speed it up. What do you think we ought to do now? Okay, let's say it again at a normal speed. What do you think we ought to do now? And then if somebody were really just to run through the question, and you could try and say it quickly, what do you think we ought to do now? Hopefully as you listen to me say this question, you kind of hear that what do you think we ought to do now? So just keep that in mind. Reductions, you could have individual words that get reduced when they're unstressed, and that vowel sound is going to change slightly. What do you think we ought to do now? And then we have, oh, I forgot to tell you, this is a picture of Grand Central Station. I didn't see any guesses in there. So this is Grand Central Station, very famous train station in New York City. Okay, so here's the last one right here. And then we're going to practice the dialogue. And we're going to say it together. Again, I want you to speak. So the last sentence, and you can tell me where you think this is right here. We're going to have to go back to square one. That's me pronouncing the individual words. But when you're having just a natural conversation, speaking casually, you're going to pronounce the more as like phrases instead of just the individual words. So I would say we're going to have to go back to square one. We're going to have to go back to square one. And I put that expression, that idiom down below, to go back to square one. It basically means to start over from the beginning because whatever you were doing before, it didn't work. You failed and you have to go back to the beginning. It really means the same as to go back to the drawing board. Either idiom, you could use either one. I realize right there is a spelling mistake, so I apologize. Square, S-Q-U-A-R-E. I always find these typos when it's too late. That's okay. I'm human. We all make mistakes, okay? So let's see what's going on with this one, and then I spell square correctly here. So we're going to, I've already mentioned, this is probably the most common reduction, gonna. Have to, I can reduce that to have to. It's a little trickier when you have one right after the other. Gonna have to. Gonna have to go back to square one. I just mentioned that when words are unstressed, they may get reduced. So to actually has two different pronunciations. When stressed, to. When unstressed, it's going to sound more like to square one, to square one. Hopefully you can hear that schwa sound. So here is what it looks like. Let's practice saying it. I'll say it slowly, repeat after me, and then we're going to speed it up. We're going to have to go back to square one. Okay, let's say it a little faster. We're going to have to go back to square one. And then if I were saying this quickly and maybe there's a sense of urgency and I tell you, oh yeah, we're going to have to go back to square one. All right. So I saw somebody mention, Robbie, excellent. This is, in case you're wondering, this is a picture of Pearl Harbor, which is in Honolulu, Hawaii. This is the Pearl Harbor National Museum. You can see the sunken ship down below. I believe that is the USS Arizona. You can check me on that because I'm not positive. But let's go back and look at all of it. So we just went through each of these sentences, and now I want you to practice this dialogue with me. To begin with, let's just do a listen and repeat of each one. And I don't expect you to memorize every little thing that we went through. I just want you to listen and try to say it in the exact same way. So that A right there, just repeat after me. Did you know we're not going to finish on time? And B, I should have seen this coming from a mile away. And then A, what do you think we ought to do now? And then finally B, the response, we're going to have to go back to square one. Okay, let's practice this together. I am going to start out. I'm going to read A. I'm going to say A, and I want you to say B, and then we're going to switch. Are you ready? Did you know we're not going to finish on time? Well, what do you think we ought to do now? Excellent. Okay, I trust that you were speaking. I'm going to ask you about that in just a moment. Let's switch. I want you to say A and I'm going to say B so you can begin right now. I should have seen this coming from a mile away. Well, we're going to have to go back to square one. Okay, well done. So if you were participating and actually speaking, let me know. Write that in the chat, in the comments right now. It just tells me that you were participating in the lesson. I can actually just go ahead and take this as a little bit of a quiz and have you tell me a poll. Let me put this down right here. Again, this is all about trying to help you not just improve your speaking skills so you have that more natural way of speaking, but if anything, again, some of this may feel a little more natural for you than others. You may feel a little more comfortable using reductions like gonna than trying to link some of these phrases together, and that's okay. You should never feel like you have to speak in a certain way, but this definitely will help with your listening comprehension. Well, let me ask you this. I'm going to poll you with this way. I know you guys are excellent. Lolly, Helen, perfect. Ida. How difficult was it to say these sentences using connected speech? All right, that's actually a question that I'd be more curious to know. It was a piece of cake. All right, telling me it was easy. Not bad. And then the last one, I need a lot more practice, which in that case, that's perfectly fine. So you can let me know in the chat right there. I just put that poll in there because I get different responses. Some people are more comfortable with the speaking activities. Others find it a little more challenging, and maybe they don't feel as comfortable. And what I would tell you, if you don't feel comfortable, don't feel like you need to force yourself to do anything. It's always good to practice, even if this is not something you use. If you feel like, okay, I want to pronounce the individual words, that's perfectly okay. But in just understanding this, like I've mentioned several times already, this will absolutely help you with your listening comprehension, because that's the way that you would hear people say this in a movie or TV show, and they would say this dialogue. Did you know we're not going to finish on time? I should have seen this coming from a mile away. What do you think we ought to do now? We're going to have to go back to square one. All right? And they just may move right through these sentences rapidly. It really depends on the context, the situation, the emotion that people are feeling or going through. So for the most part, it's a little bit of a mix. I'm glad that many of you found this to be a piece of cake and that it was easy. And that tells me, again, you're developing a more natural way of speaking. And once again, if you would like to practice and improve your speaking skills, this is stuff we do in the course. Check out that link down below in the description. We always warm up with something related to pronunciation, connected speech. Most of the time we talk about connected speech, and we'll look at some sentences, analyze them, and just have you try to practice them over and over and just try to say it in that exact same way. So I want to thank all of you for joining me right now and participating in the lesson. I saw many people write that they were speaking and saying these sentences with me. I love seeing that, because the more you do this, the more comfortable you're going to feel, and you're going to be able to speak easily and naturally the next time you're having a conversation. So I hope that you have a wonderful day. Thank you. To see a piece of cake now. All right. Thank you for participating, Lolly. I think you're doing great. It's always good to get this practice. Thanks to Kaio for being here. I look forward to seeing you in the upcoming lesson. And again, I'm going to do more lessons like this in the future, because I think this is useful just to have that understanding of why people sound the way they do, even when these are basically now that you see them, I think they're from some simple and straightforward sentences and questions. Hope you have a wonderful day and a happy Easter as well. Thank you, Angela. And I will see you next time. So long.